Hey everybody, this is just going to be another one of my around the world updates. I feel like I've been slacking. I still have so many videos I want to get caught up on. Nothing in particular is going on with this tank. I just figured I had to start somewhere, so I'd start in this corner and work my way around. We'll go from tank to tank. This is one of those tanks. I was just telling a friend of mine the other day that I just do so nothing to it, and I just never have issues with it. The water's always crystal clear. The fish get along. It's just one of those tanks that just clicks over like a machine. It's just awesome. This tank, however, my Gourami tank, I have to do a little more maintenance on it. It's really heavily stocked. I've got a lot of plants in there that grow like weeds, so I have to get in there and pull them out. Nothing's going on in particular in this tank right now. I am kind of getting concerned about the size of the animals in here, though, which is really what this video is really going to be about. I got to start making some changes or something. I'm really having some animals that are outgrowing some of their tanks. So I got a snakeskin in here that's going to get 10 inches, and my moonlights are going to get 7. And I'm a heavy feeder, so I would imagine my animals are at least going to get to full size. I haven't even had this tank up and running for a full year yet, and you can see the size of the animals that are in there already. So the clock's ticking, and this is not the only tank I have with animals that are getting pretty big. So other than that, the only thing I really got going on in this tank is it's going to be time to get in there and cut some of my water lily down, or my red tiger lotus, whatever you want to call it. That stuff just grows like mad. And then of course the water sprite that I have floating in there grows like crazy, and I throw that stuff away by the handful about once a week, and that helps me keep my nitrates somewhat under control. Speaking of nitrates, I've begun working on the nitrate video I've been talking about forever, and I'm still not satisfied with anything I'm coming up with. I don't know. I'm still working on it. I'm actually begun some experiments, but we'll get to that when we get to the tank that I'm doing the experiments on. This is my Angelfish tank, and the issues I'm having in this tank right now are aggression issues. I know my albino red eye is a male and my leopard is a male, and you can see what they're doing right now is nothing compared to what they're normally doing. It's just fighting all the time. Pretty sure my zebra leopard is a female, and she almost seems like she kind of eggs them on sometimes. She never really fights amongst them, but she gets in between them. I don't know. It's just I got some weird dynamics going on here, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I added one hoping I could break up the aggression a little bit, and it turns out that this one, which is just a mixed veil, turns out pretty aggressive himself. So I think I actually now have 3 males and a female in here. This mixed veil tends to stay to himself down at this end of the tank, and then these two just sit here and face off all day long while she just sort of floats around and does her thing. I don't know. So again, I've just got some weird dynamics going on in the tank, and I'm not really sure what to do about it. I'm kind of scratching my head as far as to how to deal with it. Believe it or not, I think my best approach is going to be to add more angelfish to spread it out a little more. The only problem with that is the only angelfish I have available to do that with are in this tank, and they're not particularly big. So I'm considering putting them in my angelfish tank, and then of course the 2 we were looking at in my 29-gallon tank that we started the video off on. But they're a mated couple, and again, that tank, I don't even want to touch that tank because it's just perfect, and I never have any issues with it, so I'm not messing with it. That's just not on the table. These 2, however, may come out of here, and I'm going to talk more about this tank in a minute when we get to the discussion on what I'm going to do with my nitrates here. This is my African tank, and I will mention briefly that this is the tank I'm getting most concerned with. Synodontis eupteris, supposed to get about 8 inches long. I haven't measured this one, but if you include the tail, I bet it's darn close already. And again, tank's not even a year old now. My Tanapoma that you can see right there. Sorry for the glare. I didn't even think about changing my shirt. I'm wearing a bright yellow shirt, and I got lights on everywhere. I just picked up my camera and started filming, so sorry. But anyway, my Tanapoma is just, good God, he's thick as a brick. And he's just getting huge. So also have a male snakeskin gourami. I had to separate them. I did have them both in this tank at one point, but the male got a little too aggressive with the female, so I separated them. So now I'm starting to get that type of aggression, and it's not anything serious. I'm not too worried about it, but it's clearly these animals are just getting too big for this 40-gallon tank. I also have a black ghost knifefish that is alive and well, but I never see because it just always hides. It's usually underneath that tree stump, or occasionally will be back there in that cave system. But it's getting pretty big now too. It's about 6 or 7 inches, and I thought they got 11 for some reason when I got them, and I figured long, thin, no problem. Well, they actually get like 22 or something. I don't know where I was getting my information, but that's another animal that's just going to be way too big for that tank eventually. So I'm still thinking about you know, what I'm going to do with all these animals, and I'm thinking about having another tank made for me. In the meantime, however, I'm doing some experiments with nitrates. I've been doing a lot of reading, I've been doing a lot of research, and I don't have any experience with some of the animals that are supposed to be notoriously sensitive to nitrates, such as the German blue rams. So I got myself a German blue ram, and as you can see, he already has some sort of white nastiness around his right eye, so I'm not really expecting this one to live very long. This was a $5 on sale at the big chain pet store, so I did not really expect it to live very long anyway. And it was actually the last one in the tank when I got it, so it was really the run. It was so pathetic when I brought it home. I just assumed it was going to die within a few days, and I'd be able to take it back and get my money back, and I'd get a better one out of their next batch. But he's been in there for over 2 weeks now, and I'm just going to kind of ride it out and see what happens with that one. That's not the experiment with the nitrates. All I'm really getting to with that, I don't really want to give away anything I'm doing yet because I want to get my ducks in a row before I start talking about it. But I have actually acquired an animal that is supposed to be notoriously sensitive to nitrates. So I am doing some personal first-hand experiments, and we're going to see what happens with that. Otherwise, everything's kind of cool with this tank, other than what I just mentioned. I may be plucking those angels out of there. If I do, I can add a couple more young angels to this tank and sort of use it as a grow out. Beautiful tank, love it. I just put this one together fairly recently, and I just love it. So we're going to definitely have some fun with this tank. If I do pull the angels out, they'll get replaced with something. This is another tank that I'm actually testing, doing some research with nitrates and allowing them to build up in the tank and so on and so forth. This is my Nano native tank, and if you see the big brute right there in the middle that's very shy, that is the only oddball fish in here. All these smaller fish are baby sunfish, and then there is one gambusia, or mosquito fish. These all came from the same collection site. And I'm going to do some testing. I'm going to do some water collection and so on and so forth again when I put this together, you know, for when I'm doing my studies with the nitrates. But these all came from one source with the exception of that large one. And I actually found that one in my crayfish trap in the stream right down the street from me. In addition to that, I've got several small crayfish in here, and I've got some sculpins on the bottom that aren't being very cooperative at the moment. So fun little tank. I'll get around to doing a little more videoing on that when I really decide what's going to happen with it and everything else. Mainly this is just an experiment to allow nitrates to build up and just see the effect it has on these fish that are supposed to be very sensitive to nitrates. This is my actual native tank, and nothing has really changed in this one. I've still got a bunch of sunfish that are just getting really big really fast. I need to get them out of there. I do have some dace in here that are very large. I haven't done much video of these. And I also have, if you can see that big one in the back swimming around, he's clearly not one of the dace. And I'm not entirely sure what he is. I think it's a chub, but I don't know for sure. So if anybody else knows what that is, let me know. And then I also have some fish in here that look identical to the dace as far as body shape, size, fin structure, gill structure, but their markings are different. They do not look like the black nose. They don't have the line down the side, but they look speckled. So I'm assuming, I'm going to make a leap here, that they're speckled dace. So I have the speckled dace, the black nose dace, and then whatever that other fish is back there that is clearly something different. And if they didn't think they were getting fed right now, That fish actually lays down on the bottom or on rocks quite frequently, and the dace do not ever do that. The dace don't. They don't lay on the bottom the way that fish does. Its mouth faces downwards. Its fin structure is very different. It reminds me a lot of my Chinese algae eater, actually. So if anybody knows what that is, let me know, because I sure don't know what it actually is. And I'm going to move away from this tank because these guys are going crazy waiting for dinner. Again, I can feed these 16 times a day. They just never stop eating. This tank is my other Nano native tank, but this tank is nothing more than a holding tank. I'm not doing anything with this tank other than letting the nitrates build up just to see what happens. So far, as I expected, nothing's happening. I do have a goldfish in there. Somebody released a bunch of goldfish in the stream down the street, and I managed to catch one of them in my crayfish trap, so now I have a goldfish. Don't really know what I'm going to do with it, but I have a goldfish now. The rest of these are mosquito fish and baby sunfish, and I do have some crayfish on the bottom. So again, when I do my video about nitrates, some of the tests that were done were actually done on Gambusia, and that's why I have these Gambusia in here specifically. I'm allowing these nitrates to build for that very reason. Oh, my poor brackish tank. The water in it is clean, everything's fine. I just never get in there to scrape the glass and get that algae off. It's not a ton, but it's really on the glass. I need to get a razor blade in there. Just a good old-fashioned Gillette blue blade, and just scrape the glass and be done with it, and then I'll be good to go. I've actually got a light right there that will be proper lighting rather than this cheap LED I have hanging over it, so that will cut down on how much the algae grows. I'm also doing sort of an offhand little experiment with all these plants. I just chucked a handful of pennywort in there with 0 acclimation to see what we got, and I mean, I'm getting quite a bit of root growth. I'm getting new growth. It's turning upwards towards the light. This is a bulletproof plant, folks. If you want, if you've got questions about what you can grow in brackish water, you don't even have to acclimate this stuff. You can throw it in brackish water and it'll just start growing. And you can see I've got it planted in here already. I do have some other plants, but I'm not going to get into that now because I'll do some discussion on this brackish tank if anyone's interested. But my experiment with seeing how quickly I could acclimate, if you want to call it that, I also am planning on doing a video about acclimation as well, so stay tuned for that. In fact, you should just subscribe, because I do a lot of videos when I get around to them. I do them in sort of fits and bursts, and then I might go several days without doing anything, but I usually do at least a video a day. So sign up, subscribe, you won't miss any. This poor tank was my Nano tank, and I've been breaking it down, but I haven't really finished breaking it down, and I do still have some fish swimming around in there. I've got some Endler's guppies, and I have some Galaxy Rasporas, and everybody's doing fine. Again, the water's alright, the water's nice and clean. It's just I've got all that stuff in there that I just want to get out of this tank, and the best way I can do that is by getting the fish out of it. Those remaining fish, I already have homes set aside for them and other tanks around the house, and then I'm just going to tear that tank down. So eventually, this Nano, or this little experimental tank right there, will be gone. I'll find a new home location-wise for my brackish tank. This tank is in the process of being broken down right now, and then of course I can move that wherever I want. There's nothing really in there except a few shrimp, and I don't really do anything with it anyway, so I don't care about that. That will free this entire wall up for me to put a nice big tank in. A friend of mine does custom acrylic, and I just sent him a text today saying I'm ready to start seriously thinking about this, so let's think about what we can do. So I'm looking at something big and something nice, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. So can't promise that your opinion will influence my decision one way or the other, but I would be curious as to hear your opinion. The two things I'm leaning towards are transferring the animals from my African tank and giving them a nice big home so they can get big and full, and I can increase my school of Congo tetras and maybe have a school of 10 or 12 tetras in there. I could really step up my African tank and do something really fabulous. Or I could do a serious native tank, and I could have some larger fish like a full-grown bass or a full-grown perch and some sizable sunfish in it, something like that. That's something I'm considering as well, because I think that would be a lot of fun. That would be really neat. The problem is I'm still stuck with finding a home for all of these animals as they get much, much larger. And I'm also kind of stuck with the idea of what am I going to do as these gouramis get larger. I suppose if I move the fish out of my African tank, that would open up some space where I could transfer some of these larger gouramis into that tank. But again, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know. That's way down the road, and this video is going to start getting really rambly really quickly. So that's about it, everybody. That was my tour of the fish room. I got some more tanks upstairs. I'll do some more video of it at some point. But that was the main tour and the main update. So thanks for watching. Go ahead, subscribe. Please like. And I'll see you real soon.